We're all here tonight. Welcome, everyone, to the January board meeting. It's nice to have so many faces out there with us this evening. We are all present tonight, and we will begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you are able, please stand and for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First up on our agenda this evening, we have a presentation by the Alumni Association, Sally Hawley and Andrea Siemens. Is that microphone? Welcome. Thank you for coming tonight.
And I'm Andrea Siemens. I was Andrea Ramsey when I was a student class of 85. So we're really happy to be asked so we can talk about all the things. Okay. Okay. So we can talk about all the things that the Lake George Alumni Association has been up to these past couple of years, and most specifically in 2022. But before we do that, we want to thank a few people. We want to thank the board and the superintendent, both principals Kokoza and Conway, for their support of the association. And a number of the individual board members have very generously given their time to some of our events, and we're appreciative for that. But again, a special thank you to Principal Kokoza, who is our staunchest supporter, and he's there for us at every meeting and beyond. So thank you for that. We're also happy to share that a number of teachers and staff have joined the association once that was open to them. And we wanted to highlight that Chris Mandela, who's also a grad and a teacher, has been instrumental in making our basketball tournament a success for the past couple of years. So we have several hundred alumni who are our members, and they contribute and participate in varying levels. And we are fortunate also to have the support of our generous community. So now I'll share some specifics about our association. We're a 10-member board of directors, and we meet once a month. And of course, we're always interested in recruiting other members. So we invite anybody who's interested to learn more or who would like to become a part of our association to reach out to us. We have an email address, info@lakegeorgealumni.com. We've had a busy and successful year in 2022. We feel like we're really reestablishing the association and redefining the association in the presence in our community, which has been our aim since 2019. So here's our highlights from this past year. We were able to have 2 Chicken Parm drive-through fundraisers. We did one in March, one in October. These were only possible through the generous support of Tony and Robin Sharavelli, who made that possible using their restaurant Mezzaluna on the main street. And then we used some of the money that we raised from our March Chicken Parm drive-through to support the Vex Robotics team, funding their t-shirts for their trip to Texas for the World Championship. We also reinvigorated the annual alumni basketball tournament in April that had been dormant for a number of years, and it was quite successful in 2022, and Andrea can talk about 23. We supported the post-prom party with a monetary donation. We were very involved with the school sign restoration project. That was spearheaded by the class of 70. The class of 80 joined with monetary support, and the Alumni Association was there from start to finish. And we were able to have that completed prior to graduation last year, which was very nice for photos. We provided in 2022, as we did in 21, 2 $2,500 scholarships for graduating seniors. And last year, for the first time, we hosted an ice cream Sunday social for our graduating class on the day that they were doing their rehearsal for graduation. We were out there waiting for them with our ice creams and our scoops, not only to provide them with some ice cream, which they appreciated, but to and stickers to introduce them to the Alumni Association in person. We'd sent the letter, but then they got to meet us. We had our second annual alumni reception at the Garrison in October, which was well attended, a very nice event. And then we also assisted the class of 1982 with some registration and collection of fee activity, kind of back office things for their recent reunion event. And this is a service that we have offered to any class who's coordinating a reunion, and because that can be the sticky part, and we have the technology to do that for them. So we're happy to do that. And that wraps up 2022. I'll let Andrea talk about next year.
We also have a Facebook page, and any alumni can go on there and see any upcoming activities or projects that are going on. They can fill out a form online to join the Alumni Association. It's pretty quick and easy, and there's no dues or anything. If you want to donate, you can, but you certainly don't have to. And you're also there you can volunteer to just donate your time. 2023 events, we have the basketball tournament that we're planning on doing once again, more chicken parm dinners. Looking forward to that in March. And those are like drive up, pick up the meal and go, which is super convenient. And we try to plan that for like a Friday, so people can have their Friday night quick dinner. Calendar raffle, we did that last year. We skipped a year because we just thought it might be a lot to ask businesses to donate again. And at our last meeting, we decided that we would like to move forward with that again. And we've kind of tweaked how we did it. But I think it was a lot of fun. I think people looked forward to each day finding out who was the winner for that day. And we were able to raise quite a bit for the Alumni Association, which again goes towards scholarships and different clubs that may need help with things like the robotics group. So we're looking forward to doing that again in the fall, and we're going to start working on that right away because that's a lot. And ice cream, we'll probably do that again. I think that was fun. Like the kids liked coming out and getting ice cream, and it really, in the past, the Alumni Association kind of filtered out. We had a lot of people that were running it, had been doing it for years and years and years. God bless them. Like they were in their 70s or 80s, and it was, and then Sally and Glenn jumped in and kind of reinvigorated it. And we've now been able to get more younger people involved, which is amazing because eventually, we're going to get to the point where it's hard for us to do it again. But we have I say kids, young adults that are involved, like really involved, and they're like, they have graduated within the last 10 years, right? And that's like, I think hard to find in an alumni association. You don't usually get the younger kids joining. So I think for us to be at events like the basketball tournament, but like graduation rehearsal and things like that, and for them to just see our faces and for us to say, hey, join, you're always going to be a part of it. You're always going to be an alumni. And then again, the alumni reception, that I think is a good idea to have every year if we can. It brings people together if they're in town. And I know I love seeing people from my class and classes around. It's fun. What else was I going to say? Oh, mentoring. We've been talking about trying to connect that. Now we have I think we have over 400 alumni in our association. And we've been talking with the guidance department about just having those resources for maybe connecting students with alumni, if you're whatever business or direction they're interested in, having somebody that they could connect with and talk to and just answer questions about, kind of even similar to like what you would have as a college alumni. You can reach back to your college and see, who's in what fields and how can I make a connection for a business. So just kind of reaching out in that way and staying connected with the students pretty much any way we can. So if you need us, reach out to us. Fran's at every meeting. Guess now you have to be at every meeting. But yeah, you can go to the Facebook page. You can reach us through email. If there's resources that we have, we'd like to extend ourselves to help in any way we can.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions?
Thank you so much. That was a great update. It's wonderful to know that we have such an active alumni association, and the age span of membership and participation is great. It's wonderful for our community. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. And next up on the agenda, we have the math, K through 12 math presentation with Jen Johnston and Brian Thompson. So welcome this evening.
I'm just going to stand like I'm going to sing a solo. And I am living proof of their alumni basketball tournament. And despite my injury, it's a very positive event. I've played in it for years. And it is a great way to bring students together and teachers together and whatever. But this was my own fault because I was trying to act too young. It happens. All right, so my name is Jennifer Johnston. I am the high school head of department, and I teach Algebra 2 and pre-calculus right now.
I am Brian Thompson. I teach fourth grade at the elementary school, and I am the elementary school math chair.
So what we're going to talk about today is, it's kind of similar to what we may have presented a few years ago due to COVID, when things did get put on pause. So our first slide, though you can't read the words, don't worry, you'll see them on later slides. However, I'm trying. I wanted to illustrate that essentially these standards came out in 2017, and we had started preparing and learning these new standards at that time. Due to COVID, things got put on pause, so now there's a new timeline where now they're being implemented. So as of right now, this year is the first year in New York State, grades 3 through 8 will be tested on these new New York State Next Generation Learning Standards. And they will be slowly phased in as all standards are. So after this year, Algebra 1 will be tested. The Algebra 1 regions will reflect these standards, and then the following year, Geometry, and the following year, Algebra 2. However, personally, I've been here for over 20 years now, and though the title of the standards may change, ultimately, the content doesn't change that drastically. Maybe things get shifted from course to course. However, ultimately, the content is what we've been teaching for many years. However, if we want to really focus on something that I think Brian and I both agree is the most important standards that they give us two kind of sets of standards, so to speak. These are standards for mathematical practice, which are really more important. And it's just developing the overall learner and the overall problem solvers.
Right. And I mean, the biggest thing for elementary school kids all the way up through high school, being able to be a problem solver, that is a really big thing that we really push down at the Elm School. And I know they do up at the high school, thinking abstractly and quantitatively, viable arguments, model with mathematics. So if they draw those pictures, they can understand it better, using appropriate tools, attending to precision, look for and make use of structure. So all those things kind of add up, but it connects K through 12.
And then as far as like the content in which we try to nurture these mathematical practice standards, all of these domains such as counting and cardinality, measurement and data, functions, statistics, these are just, again, covering every topic in math that we actually have to teach as far as content and what the regions and state exams test us on. But again, more importantly, we're nurturing those mathematical standard practices. In the high school, what we are showing here is essentially the 3 basic flow charts for different pathways that students may take. Now, this is not set in stone, and there's certainly other unique pathways students may take depending on certain situations. So in this pathway, for example, the bottom row illustrates a student who is an exceptional math student. It's recognized in grade 7, and they're accelerated starting in grade 7, and with the ultimate goal of taking AP Calc as a senior. The middle pathway is the regular pathway of most majority of students. So just 7th, 8th, Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, and then pre-calc. But again, there are other ways of going about it. The top pathway is for those people who math is not a priority, or maybe they struggle a little bit more, but they still can earn their 3 credits of math to earn a Regents diploma and pass the Algebra 1 Regents. But again, there's always unique situations where somebody may not fit this essential pathway, and we make that happen. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that more later.
at the Elm School, again, they all connect to the high school, but you're still working with counting and cardinality, operations, algebraic thinking, number sense, and operation base 10, fractions. We all know fractions are huge, measurement and data, and geometry, and it all connects up towards high school. And do a little bit of statistics and probability, but that's for our sixth grader.
And essentially, you know, those domains in K6 are the same domains in 7-12, except for we just obviously delve deeper.
Right.
But the foundations are built in the elementary school.
Changes K6, our math program. We are looking at a new math program starting in the fall. Our contract is up at the end of this year. So we're looking at different options, more computer-based assessments as we are shifting more towards that at the state level. Some more math AIS instruction addressing gaps due to COVID. The Sunrise Scholars has been a great help for kids coming in the morning. And if they've missed something due to COVID because it was something they just didn't get, they get that a little extra help in the morning, as well throughout the day. And again, adopting that new math program in 23.
So in grades 7-12, some of the changes, and again, you know, COVID kind of put us on pause for a bit, so not too many changes have been able to occur. But because of COVID also, we're trying to address those gaps because there are learning gaps due to those delays and whatnot during COVID. So we're trying to address those. We have reinstituted math labs. So every Regents course, algebra, geometry, and algebra 2, every student has a math lab, which means they meet one extra period a week in order to try to work on filling these gaps and so forth. So that's been a great thing. We've always had them in the past, but we had to get rid of them for a bit, but we've been able to implement them back in. The other thing, again, is I mentioned before, is other pathways. So a lot of times, you know, students may not be quite ready in 7th grade to be accelerated. Okay. You know, everybody peaks at a different time. But it doesn't mean that they can't become stronger and be eligible to accelerate later on. So we've had situations, for example, in the past where some students, their junior summer, they'll go to SUNY Adirondack and take pre-calculus, therefore allowing them to take AP Calc here. That's happened in the past with a few students. We're also trying to come up with other pathways too for students to accelerate at other times. Right now, we have a student who is taking both geometry and algebra 2 at the same time, and she's excelling. So we're trying to look into giving kids the opportunity so they're not defeated maybe in 7th grade where they're not quite ready, but they enhance their skills and are ready later on throughout their high school career. And we want to be able to give them that opportunity. And then, of course, you know, we're just trying to continually deal with retirements and enrollment affecting, you know, our course offerings. We want to still offer as much as possible, but, you know, we have to also deal with other outside things that we can't control.
Goals and targets, again, raising the bar, continuing to increase students' achievement, mastery on those math assessments. That's one measure, but continuing to get the kids to master those skills. We use iReady, school-wide math goals. I know down at the Elm School, we've got a school-wide math goal going right now. As the kids are doing some work on iReady, there's a hiker that goes across the right near where the cafeteria is, and it's showing, just trying to get some excitement around math. Again, increase percentage of students who challenge themselves, and this is more towards the high school, AP, New Visions, and other programs.
So in the past, a few years ago with our prior goals, the goal up there had stated, you know, increased percentage of an advanced Regents diploma. And it's not that we're disregarding that, but we also want to think of other things like, you know, not every student may get an advanced Regents diploma, but they're still pursuing higher level math in different arenas. So we want to try and support everybody in every different individual situation. And the other thing that we're also trying to do as far as our second goal of closing the gap in the high school, and I'm sure in the elementary school, we're trying to decrease the percent of students in our 2-year math program. So we have Algebra 1A, 1B, and we had applied Regents geometry, which we are now, so we used to have, it was a non-Regents, but now we changed it to a Regents geometry. So it's a lower level geometry, but they are still going to take the Regents. And we are trying to do this by starting to, with our data guru, Bonnie Hart, track subgroups and try to pinpoint students who need help earlier on. So to give them that extra support, whether it's AIS or even more extra support in order to kind of nip it in the bud, so to speak, at earlier grades and try to reduce the number of AIS students. But in those AIS labs, we're really trying to enhance how it's structured and how it's delivered. So we're really trying to close the gap in terms of getting most students through that regular pathway.
And down at the Elm School with decreasing the percentage of students needing that AIS support. We've seen across, I know with being in fourth grade, I tried to look back and see some of those skills that the kids missed when they were out for COVID, and it lines up. It does. Some of those things that the kids are struggling with, they need a little bit more support in that because they missed that instruction. Create values. I know we really push for this. St. Jude's Mathathon, Math Night. Math Night's coming up. It is February 8th. Pretty sure that's the date. You're more than welcome to come if you want to stop in. It's from 6 to 7. We'll have games throughout the building, those little putting games, just different math things going on. We'll also, we didn't do it last year, but hopefully bring back that St. Jude's Mathathon because it goes for a great cause. Leadership binders, Math Night leaders, peer tutoring, and our vertical alignment, of course, K-12. My opinion, look at some of those because we did take a pause.
So
and-
that red line is COVID.
Yes. So there wasn't a test in 20 and 21. Then we came back and there was one 21, 22. So that red line, I almost feel like, and I know looking at it, it's almost like it's a restart because as the kids were going through, that red line hit and then looking across, our kids still did really well on this, even missing some of that instruction. So it definitely benefited us being able to be in school as much as we were.
And then in the high school, some of the data that we've provided here, again, the red line is COVID years. So we don't have full data on all of the Regents exams. So because they implemented the Algebra 1 Regents since it was a graduation requirement earlier than Geometry and Algebra 2. However, again, it still indicates though throughout the years, like our passing rates have always been decent, okay? But we're not happy with our mastery and we want to always continually try to figure out how to boost that up. So that's one of our main goals in our department.
Recommended resources in PD. Definitely for us, I look at the one on the bottom, PD on the new math program starting in 23. Starting the end of the month, we have a small group of teachers that are going to be looking at different programs to start looking at, and when that program is adopted, really getting that PD out there for everybody. K-6, increase support, continue exploring ways to raise the bar, close the gap, if it's dealing with AIS, if it's dealing with after school, Sunrise Scholars, whichever it may be. Time for K-12 discussions. That is, again, a very important thing, as it all connects.
Yeah, and I feel like we don't really have a lot of that time. You know, being in 2 different buildings, we know that's difficult, but it's hard to really sit down K-12 to have those vertical and cross-curricular alignment of whether it's content or whether it's teaching methods or presentations, like even down to what words do you use in the classroom. You know, it makes a difference. And we really just would love always to have more time to speak with them and whatnot to do that. And then the main thing too is going to that computer-based testing. You know, it's inevitable. And as a math teacher, I don't want it to ever happen. You know, to me, it's going to be kids are going to need iPads and styluses. Math is not really should not be assessed multiple choice.
I mean,
So that's something that we're going to
going
have
on
to
it from us, because I teach fourth grade, our kids have iPads. So we're able to use some Apple Pencils so they can show their work. And it's clear as day that, okay, they're submitting it. We can see what they understand. If you're just typing it into a computer, that's training in itself how to do division or how to do simple raising it to the second power or so on. It's a lot of teaching of those skills.
Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation. Well, one question I just was, do you anticipate that the standardized computer testing is heading in the direction of multiple choice?
I worry about that because, again, like what Brian was just saying, teaching a student, especially at the younger years, just how to manipulate on the computer is a month in itself. So I fear that. And I know, like, I've taken math exams online. Like when I went to do the master teacher, I had to do that. And ultimately, it was a multiple choice question, even though there was a lot of work you needed to do to figure that out. But you never submitted your work. So I don't know what they're going to do. I'm just hoping it doesn't lend itself to that nature.
The math labs that you're running right now, are those for every student, or do you have to qualify in some way, or is that something that each class is?
Well, in the high school, every student who takes Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2 has a math lab in their schedule. And then also students who are in the 2-year algebra program also have an extra support. They have their AIS extra support. So yes, every student, not pre-calc or AP Calc has a lab embedded in it. That's just how the course is designed. But yes, every student.
And thanks. And then the last question, I was just wondering, because I don't think it was mentioned here, but is the pathway, the like accelerated pathway for math, 7th and 8th grade, is the math and science still linked?
It is, however, we have had, again, students who have only done one, and we've been able to work that out. So that's, again, like the unique situation. But yes, because again, we want to just support whatever we can for the students. So we've had students just do one and not the other. But typically they do both.
Thank you.
I've got a question. I'm curious about math attitudes in Lake George. The idea of I'm good at math, I can do math. Math is something that somebody like me is accessible to. Have you noticed anything, or do you have any kind of
I will
campaign?
say, from up until COVID hit, I felt like it was really good. Then you went through a little bit of a lull, trying to get the kids' confidence back, learning virtually, learning how to solve different equations. I do feel they're coming back. I think their attitudes towards it, they're excited, they feel more confident, and it's nice to see. Sunrise Scholars really helps, and having that AIS support down at the elementary school. I know there's teachers that keep kids after school and work with them, so there's a lot of support there for kids, and I do see their confidence coming back.
Yeah, and I think in the high school, with the push of STEM in general, and our robotics program, which is phenomenal, like kids want to go into the STEM, so they are more encouraged to do math and learn math. We have a good number of students now in pre-calc and continuing on. So I do think that it's becoming definitely a more positive attitude towards it. We're working on that. The exception of one cohort are female.
Very good.
Our data guru.
Been that
Very
way for
good,
a long
good.
time.
Yeah. I've got a last question,
Yeah.
and either of you can answer it. Why is 6 afraid of 7?
Geez, 7, 8, 9. Thank you.
I just one
Oh, yeah,
comment.
sorry.
I have a
No,
question.
I don't have a question, but I am so appreciative of, you mentioned the individualized attention. And, it's evident in the creative pathways and bringing back Math Lab, Sunrise Scholars. I very much appreciate how you individualize things. That's really
Thank you.
a wonderful, wonderful thing for our math program. Thank you. Oh, Barb.
Can you go back to that first data analysis slide?
Grade create or the high school?
The grades 3 through 8.
Yeah.
Please, again.
Right there, yes.
What happened between 15 and 17 to 18? Those the scores jumped dramatically, except for one grade. Like something happened there for them to really climb like that.
And it was the start of a new math program back then. It was, and yes, I think that was starting. It was some of the standards as well. They were newer and the kids were getting used to taking some of those. And if my memory serves me correct, those tests were timed.
The 15, 16?
15, 16. So what they have done in recent years is they have taken the time limit away. So it's taken a lot of the stress off the kids. So they don't have to feel like they gotta get it done, get it done. I remember there were kids that were almost in tears at some points, because they realized the time was starting to get to the end and they were running out. So I do think that's a bit, and I just think all those things kind of add up
Yeah, some
together.
Great results there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Can I just ask a question? I just wondered, to prep the students who are coming into seventh grade who are actually very talented in math, do you have any different instruction for them? Any more challenging curriculum? Are they ready for?
You mean in sixth grade?
Sixth grade? Did I
Okay.
say seventh?
No,
I'm
you
sorry.
said, so coming in, I'm
Coming
saying, are
into
you asking
seventh.
about challenging
Yeah.
them in sixth grade?
Yeah, is there some kind of different instruction for these students?
The
More
nice
challenge?
part is our iReady program that we have
Oh.
really differentiates the kids.
Oh, okay.
So they're able to test out in the beginning and then
Okay.
we test them a couple times throughout the year.
Mhm.
And it picks out things that they really might be struggling with. And if they're a high achieving kid, it's going to be things that are higher up anyway. So it might be your seventh grade solving fractions or solving equations or things like
Mhm,
that. So
mhm.
yes, that program really accelerates.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I add to that
Yeah.
as well? And I think what helps a lot too is our WIN program. What I need is to get it. I don't know if it's just 56, but we did 3 days of ELA and 3 days of math.
Yes.
Oh,
And so those students that are performing at a higher level, they're being challenged at a higher level.
nice to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
I think I had kind of similar, I had more of a concern, like the middle school kids, the seventh and eighth graders. So I hear about math lab for the high schoolers and the special programs for the Elm School. Like, is there any special?
Yeah, so in seventh and eighth grade, again, we have AIS support for students who need it. And, you know, the eighth graders who are accelerated, they have a lab because they're taking the algebra and regents.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about the ones that aren't accelerated.
Right, so they also have support, and again, mostly through AIS, that's what we call it, so to speak, but it's still, they are all supported if they need it.
Thank you. You generated, I think, a question from everybody. Congratulations. Kudos to you. Thank you. It was a
Thank you.
really, really
Thank you.
great presentation. Thank you
guys.
for the update and thank you for your work. Next up, we have our elementary school principal, Mr. Jim Conway.
Okay, Happy New Year, everybody. And thanks to Brian and Jen, to all of our teaching staff, certainly at the elementary school. All of our teachers are math teachers in the classroom, and we're really proud of the work. I'm really proud of the work that they're doing with kids each and every day. I do want to recognize our staff for an amazing holiday season. We had some really cool things that happened for our students, from our winter concert to the sing-along, and thank you to some of you who were able to be there and sing along with us. Our holiday fair that our PTSO sponsors, the classroom celebrations. It was just a real exciting, positive time for our students. And it's crazy that they're talking about COVID, because I think back to last year and we didn't do any of that because of where we were at. So very different feel throughout the holiday season this year. But big credit to our staff for harnessing that energy that our kids have at that time of the year and focusing in a real positive and exciting way. Brian did mention February 8th is our math night, and that is one of our action teams out of our educational cabinet. One of their charges is to put on a math night, a celebration that involves students. So while our teachers help oversee that, they are involving our students in helping to organize and run that event. And I want to mention tonight some of the work of those action teams. Educational cabinet action teams for our PARP program in March, our social studies fair on the 5th, Flag Day celebration on June 14th, and our leadership assembly on June 9th. And again, it sounds like events, but those events are leaderized in the sense that those committees, those action teams are involving students in different ways. It's not the teachers putting on or presenting an event. They're figuring out ways to involve the students to help set goals, to be advocates for themselves in different manners along the way to do something different. And it looks very different. And actually, these events or these celebrations are much better when students are involved in the decision-making process. And the one final one that Brian talked about that are wildly important goals. It was interesting. You saw the data, and I think Bonnie chimed in. One of the things regionally we found last year, coming out of the craziness, which was COVID instruction and education, was that our ELA scores were generally higher than our math scores. And that was the case with us. Our kids scored very well, and we're really proud of where they wound up, but our math scores were lower than our ELA scores. And it's not always the case. So one of our focuses this year is on math, and we do chart. All of the kids set personal goals, and they keep those goals in their leadership binders, and that's them. It's a private goal for them. But classes also challenge themselves to improve, as does the grade level. And when you are in the elementary school, you'll see what Brian referred to as that mountain. Those of you that were at policy last night at the PTSO meeting, you saw that mountain that's on the on the window, and the pictures of the teachers, and kids are moving those hikers up to the top of the mountain, and we travel around with a golden walking stick and celebrate their successes. So it's a big deal for us, and it's very involved in the fact that they're learning how to set goals and work towards those goals. And ultimately, our math scores go up, which is great. So how is math fun, and are kids excited about math? Yes. And do our students view themselves as math students? I see that in the classrooms, and I think it's the result of the work that our teachers are doing and the support that kids are getting. So I wanted to mention that. I also wanted to just briefly talk about some of our student lighthouse team work at the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade level. Here are the things they have going on. I mentioned these at PTSO last night. So we have a group of students that are working on menu changes in the cafeteria. Again, these ideas don't come from me, they come from kids. They work to make this happen. We have a group of students trying to partner with a local bakery for an after-school baking club. We've never done that before. We have another group of students that's exploring different seating options, such as booths instead of tables in our cafeteria. I don't know if they'll get there or not, but we'll see. We have a group of students that are working to support younger students that might be anxious at school. They're coming up with ways to work together with their counselors to find times where they can help support other children in the building. We have a group of students that is working towards making updates in the little theater. It's kind of a boring brown space, Mr. Conway. We want to make it more exciting and inviting. They have plans for some different pictures and things that are going to be going up in there. Another group of students, they are organizing a supply drive for a local animal shelter. Talking like 9, 10, 11-year-old kids. Improvements to the playground, specifically seesaws. That's what they're focused on. I think they'll make it happen. Improvements to make the student bathrooms nicer. That was one of the most exciting ones to our students. And a ropes course club. So again, the idea behind those 9, 10 teams is that students come up with the ideas. They are moving forward, contacting people, whether it's the superintendent, the Board of Education, the Director of Buildings and Grounds, getting on the phone and calling the SPCA. They're doing it on their own, which I'm really proud of and excited, and I will continue to come back to you to share how they make out. Final thing is the PTSO Air Band event is back. As of today, we had 9 or 10. I wasn't sure. Maybe one on the bubble team. 10 acts and one staff act Friday, February 3rd in the high school auditorium. So hopefully you can come join us. And I know we'll get anyone in the audience up if you want to participate as well. We'll give you a guitar and have at it. So that's the elementary school report.
Jim, thank you. And I was at the policy meeting, the PTSO meeting last night, and it's interesting you mentioned the mountain, the mural that's on the cafeteria window. because when I walked in, the messaging in the school struck me. I got there a little bit early and had time to walk down the hall, and there were so many positive messages. I mean, you look up, as on doorways and just tucked in everywhere were these really positive messages or positive questions to get kids thinking. So it was really, it was uplifting. So thank you for
Thanks.
that.
I felt the same way. I felt really confident by the time I got to my destination last night.
We got this.
You got
Like, yeah, you feel empowered there.
I was just going to say, I just to make a comment, I really love that the students have got their own personal goals related to their subject material. I just think that's really powerful for, sometimes I think kids get like lost in the movement of a class, and just to feel like that personal goal and accountability to self and what am I working on and keeping it real, like that's great. Then I got really distracted by your the team initiative to, I mean, like these ideas, they're really thinking big, but even better, they're thinking of each other, and the project to reach out and try to help their peers who might be, or younger children who are struggling is phenomenal.
And oftentimes they are students that had that struggle themselves,
Right.
and that's why they want to provide that support, which is pretty amazing.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have our secondary update with Mr. Fran Kokoza, our secondary principal.
Hi, good evening. So I want to thank our alumni friends for a great presentation. So excited for the energy behind our association. They're doing some great things. And if you were in the gymnasium Saturday, you would feel that energy. So it's a great thing that's happening for Lake George High School. This Thursday, separately, the Scholarship Association is having their annual phone-a-thon. So when your phone rings on Thursday, don't hang up, because there'll be junior and senior National Honor Society members making phone calls, soliciting donations for the Scholarship Association. So that's Thursday in 2 days. And if you don't get that phone call, you certainly can go to the Scholarship Association website and make a donation there. I'll be very quick, and you will get a mailing from them, because I'm going to yield most of my time to John, because he has some high school specific stuff during his update as well. But our forum, which has student voice and student involvement, is still currently working through those initiatives that I keep updating you about. We had another very energetic and invigorating meeting today with our forum, our shared decision-making body. And again, just a reminder, there's 4 focuses. We're working on careers, Senior Give Back Day, our attendance policy, and our open house. We currently have an open house parent survey, which is getting excellent feedback and great participation, asking parents about how we can review and update and refresh our open house. Talent show is Wednesday, January 18th at 6 o'clock, right here in this space. Depending on the number of acts, we may move it to the auditorium, but it's Wednesday, the 18th at 6. Although there is ice out on lakes, it's thin, so you should not be out on ice. However, it's never too early to start thinking about the prom. So on Wednesday, the 25th, we have our post-prom and prom parent meeting, in which we start the planning of that event. A reminder that the junior prom is May 6th. It will start with the coronation at Shepherd Park. The prom will be at the Holiday Inn this year. Because our classes are getting smaller, it's now opening up more unique venues. And the Holiday Inn has a smaller banquet hall space, and we are now actually able to fit in the Holiday Inn for our prom. And then post-prom will take place at Lanes and Games that evening after the prom. Last day of the second quarter is Friday, January 27th, and we march very quickly to the third quarter for February. That's my update.
Thank you, Fran.
Thank you, Katie.
Have any? Thanks. Next up, we have our superintendent's report with Mr. John Luthringer, our superintendent.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. So I know one of the things I wanted to mention about airband is the last time I was on an airband stage, I tore my meniscus. So I feel like Jen, I'm happy to view and excited for the students, but it's really easy to get really engaged and just take on, you know, the role. And I did a power slide with the guitar and tore my meniscus, so I won't be doing that again. So thank you so much. I do have a couple presentations here, and one of them is one thing that we want to pay attention to and look at every single year is really our enrollment. It's something that it's important. It's something that we want to look at, and certainly something that we want to take into account when we have decision making. So today's really an opportunity to bring the Board of Education up to speed on our student enrollment trends. I know I've shared this previously, but we'll dive right in here. And I think one thing to keep in mind with this is that as we talk about enrollment, and certainly it's a piece of data. It's something, again, that we need to pay attention to, and it's something that we need to look at when we're making decisions. But there are reasons behind this, and there are things that that we can do to address it, but also know that this is not a Lake George issue. It's really a state issue. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this as we get going here. So the presentation is really and kind of a series of slides here. It starts really at the macro level and gets to the micro level. So this first slide here is referring to looking at the state level. And again, this data comes from Empire Center. It's really public information, and it has to do with our public school enrollment. And what's interesting about this slide here, if you look at it, this is really the last 8 years and the percent of change in New York State public school enrollment. And it has really significantly decreased to about 8% over those years. But what's more, I guess, troubling, or just something to look at, is that during those COVID years, the decline across the state was 5%. So that's a dramatic drop off. And just to provide some context behind that, New York City public schools just during COVID was reduced 10%. And so thinking just about some numbers here, over the course of time from 2012 to 22, over those time span, it was about 200,000 students. That 8%, and 30,000 during that COVID year for New York City. So it is a tremendous amount of students. And again, there's a lot of reasons behind this. One, and you might have seen in the news, this is becoming more common, I think. New York State is overall reducing population. It is the leading state of people to move out. So that's number one, and that does impact our enrollment. But second, there's other factors in this. Certainly, one of them, rural communities are hit harder than that. We see people moving out of rural to more suburban or city areas as well, looking for employment and other opportunities. There's other factors such as families. Families are having children, less children. We know that there are statistics behind that. I think many of I know my parents, there's 6 siblings. Those are not happening as much anymore. Secondly, families are having children much later in life. In addition to that, less and less people are getting married. So there are just shifts in how families are coming together and the types and amounts of children they're having. So again, this is the macro level. So you can see here, this is the state going down, and we're going to get into the school district as well. One of the things when we're looking at this data is it goes from the school district to what's called the State Education Department's Student Information Repository System, otherwise known as SIRS. So Megan's department is very familiar with SIRS, Sarah is, and myself as well. And the data that's put in is called basic educational data. It's BEDS data. So there's a day, the first Wednesday in October, where we input the data up to the state. So all demographic data, number of students, all sorts of different things about students we put into the system. So the data that we're looking at here over this 22-year period, so we're looking from about 2000, 2001 up to the most current time period, it's a year lag. So keep in mind that we're looking at really last year's data because it has to be certified by the state. So we're not looking at this year's enrollment, it's last year's enrollment. So one of the things here on this slide that represents this slide here, and if you can, behind that little image of the viewing room, you'll notice Lake George here. So Lake George, over the course of the last 20 years, it's approximately 41% reduction in enrollment. So we've gone from a period of time of about 1,100 students to 645 students. And again, thinking about the macro level here, this is the entire BOCES region. So this is 31 schools in our region. And the one thing that I want to point out here also, again, is that we are not alone. Every single school district is faced with declining enrollment. Big schools, small schools, rural schools, city schools, all of the schools on this list here, all 31 schools, are facing declining enrollment. So if you think about it, looking at Saratoga Springs, they've lost almost 915 students. Queensbury has lost 700. So you can see the list goes on. Our percentage is 41.4%. Again, in really the top 5 of our school districts in our region for declining enrollment. As we continue to move on here, bear with me. So as we continue to move on, just again, so this is Warren County school districts. So you can see Lake George, again, 41.4%, and county. This is just another way to look at it. So again, this is a line graph starting with really the peak of Lake George enrollment around 1,100. And at this point, we're at 645 students. So each year has continued to see decline over the course of those 20 years. This graph here represents the 2 buildings. So the blue graph represents the junior senior high school, and the green line graph represents the elementary. One thing to keep in mind, as those classes from the elementary, where you can see that line is lower than the junior senior high school, those classes are starting to really enter into the junior senior high school. So over the course of time, that blue line will become the green line, and so on and so forth. It'll just keep, they will impact each other. So as we mentioned, there's approximately 290 students in the elementary school and 355 students in the junior senior high school. Again, another way to look at the impact the elementary will have on the junior senior high school. This is the percentage of students. So the blue graph represents the decrease, the percentage decrease over the course of the 20 years. And then the red bar is the percent of the yearly average decrease. So as we've seen in another representation, as we've seen before, the 3.37% at the elementary. So that will start to drastically impact our junior senior high school. So that red bar next year will likely increase. Over the course of time, the district as a whole, the yearly average is approximately 2.74%. So this chart's rather interesting to look at just pure numbers of students. So I'm just going to kind of highlight a few things here. So the first column that you see, the 22-23 school year, that is the class size enrollment from K through 12. You'll notice that in grades 10, 11, and 12 are our higher classes, and you'll notice that K1, 2, 3, 4 are some of our lowest enrolled classes. And you'll see over the course of time, as those classes in the elementary school move into the junior senior high school, it starts to impact each year the junior senior high school enrollment to a point where over the next 6-7 years we'll be at approximately, with some projections here, 240 students in the junior senior high school. One thing that we took a close look at is how does student transferring in impact our enrollment. So every single year we have students that move out and students that move in. That's common across all school districts. One thing that we wanted to look at was, does that impact our enrollment? Are students moving in and are we reducing less of them moving out? So does that impact? And yes, it does show that there is a slight increase. So in our elementary, approximately 7.5 students over the course of time are moving in. So that's a positive sign, but it's a smaller change at the junior senior high school. It's very slight, 0.23. In some districts, they might see that happen in 9th grade. I'll think of some schools such as Glens Falls or Queensbury, where you might see a bump in enrollment in 9th grade because of some private institutions such as St. Mary's. So you might see a bump there. What this is showing is that we really don't see that here in Lake George. So again, one of those things that I wanted to keep in mind here is that as we look at this, this is just data. This is something that we're faced with. However, what are the opportunities that exist because of that? So we're always looking for opportunities. We're always looking to improve and be better. And the one thing that I want to just, as I caveat into these next few slides here, is this is what I've learned over these last 6 months too. So this is something that I think is most important. I've shared this with the elementary school. I've shared this with the high school. These are those opportunities that all of our students have access to. And I think this is really what's most important as we continue to navigate decline in enrollment, is ensuring the students that are here are getting the best quality access to numerous important programs, pathways, activities, sports, whatever it might be, because our job is to, ensure that our students are meeting the mission of our district. And I just want to comment on this for just a couple minutes here. So these next few slides, you'll notice on the left-hand side, this is our commitment to our values and our programming. So this is, again, our values on the left-hand side. So I'm just going to highlight this for a moment here. And these have been developed over time prior to me arriving, but this is what matters most: an engaging and innovative learning environment for each student, a comprehensive K-12 instructional program and using best practices, student connections to extracurricular opportunities, and appreciation for diversity and local traditions. So when we think about what we're doing here, we always want to think about those values. And I'm going to highlight a few things, and I certainly can't put everything that's going on into this presentation. So these are just a few highlights of things that I've learned and ways that we are still providing a very, very strong program of studies for our students. And if you think about it, this in the junior senior high school, these are some things that are new. The seal of biliteracy for our world languages and the seal of civic readiness. So we want our students to have opportunities to excel as they reach towards graduation. And these are just a couple of the newer ones in our program of studies, in addition to 2 new AP courses, AP US Government and AP Chemistry. And then I'm not going to list all of those, but our students, we pride ourselves in providing pathways for students. Students deserve pathways, whatever that might be, working towards workforce, working towards graduation, working towards college. But you could see a number of different pathways: our CTE, our Early College and Career Academy, our P-Tech programs, and our Clean Technologies program at HVCC. So again, when we're thinking about declining enrollment, we are still ensuring these opportunities exist for our students. Moving on into the elementary school, there are a number of academic programs. And when I think about the elementary schools, the supports that each student have, and this does obviously go up into the junior, senior high school, but our students, I've never been in a district that prides itself so much on personalized opportunities for our students. I've been so impressed with each student gets what they need. I know it was spoken about earlier, the win time. Absolutely, every student gets what they need. The students do not fall through the cracks here in Lake George, and that's something that has been very apparent to me in my time here. Mr. Conway mentioned the Lighthouse team and great projects they're working on, all student driven, really excited. They met with me on one of them, and that was really a great experience. Our Leader in Me program, really developing those skills for our next generation of leaders. So this is all things happening down at the elementary, to include our high potential program of our students, all of our students getting additional STEM hands-on experiences in our program. So when we think about, again, programming, we're committing to those values. In addition to that, we've had successful athletic mergers. We've also looked, as we kind of navigate decline in enrollment, I'll talk about on the next slide, athletic mergers we've had great success with. Currently are ones with our wrestling program, in addition to our football program with Warrensburg and North Warren. I've also been so impressed with the activities that we offer. Over 35 after-school clubs and activities, a fishing club that's new for 22-23. It's got great interest and something that we're going to continue to expand on. When we think about future programming, so again, looking at this, we're always trying to improve and grow our program, even in the face of declining enrollment. So we have our new F1 International Student Program. We were just approved through the Student Exchange Visitor Program. We're really excited about that. We had a meeting today, actually, that was very productive with our international coordinators. We're bringing in a school-based counseling program. I've talked to the board about this before. We're imminently away from that. It's coming. As we know, we need to continue to support the mental health needs of our students, especially post-COVID. We have a new elementary math program that Brian talked about as well, and Mr. Conway did. We're going to continue to look at our literacy program. That's something that we're always going to do. We want to make sure that we're using best practices and really getting back to that as we get out of COVID, and we can kind of reinvigorate looking at all pieces of our curriculum. In addition to that, our VEX robotics program, and we know we have a very strong high school program. We use First Lego League down at the elementary level, but we've been having discussions about aligning those programs and really building a middle years program for VEX robotics. So that's starting to move forward. In addition, we have some mandates coming from the state education department. One of them is our science investigation. So we really need to look at curriculum alignment. We'll talk more about that, but that's something that's ongoing. In addition to our computer science and digital fluency standards that are coming from the state, we were talking yesterday in policy about the importance of keyboarding skills. That's just a small piece of that, but that's part of those standards. And then something that we've also reinvigorated this year is getting back to measuring our district goals. The Board of Education has approved or, again, reinvigorated the goal setting process, and we've established our goals for 2 years, and we're starting that process of really looking closely at our data. We have a lot of data, but how are we best using it, and how do we best set our goals each year? And then one of the last things is really strengthening our relationships regionally with higher education and the workforce development. So we've had meetings with both SUNY Adirondack and Warren County Workforce Development about what are those skills needed for students to go off and be successful in both environments. So that's something that we're paying close attention to. Again, strengthening those relationships so we can ensure our students are prepared when they leave here. So thinking a little bit more on just this last slide here. So sometimes the question I get is, well, how is Lake George addressing this? What are we doing? Well, number one, we're still committed to our mission, vision, and values. That's most important. The students that we do have here, we want to ensure that we have all the programs that are going to allow them to be successful. Again, we're also committed to programming. Anything that we're doing, we're going to look closely at. We want to ensure that our programming meets the needs of our students and it helps prepare them for life beyond here. But there are ways that we can address declining enrollment, and one of them is reducing positions through attrition. That's something that has been happening in the district. So since 2008, we've reduced 38.10 full-time positions. That's across the board, across all full-time positions. So as positions come up through either retirements or other means, we're going to be looking very closely at them as we continue to right-size the district. As declining enrollment happens, we need to really pay close attention to that. One of the other pieces that we'll be looking more closely at also is shared staffing positions K-12. This is going to be something that could benefit us as we continue to decline. And one of those is going to be starting soon with our K-12 school psychologist. So we're going to be moving to that next year, one school psychologist K-12. So we're having those discussions and we're talking about how that will work next year. We have other future transitions coming up as well with our business official. We have our CSE chairperson, some clerical positions. Those are positions that we're all looking at closely in ways that we may be able to reduce them without impacting programming. So there's a ways that we're looking at kind of absorbing those into existing staff. There'll be other ones that come up as well with some potential retirements from our teaching staff in future years. One of the things we'll continue to do, as I mentioned before, is continue to explore shared services with regional school districts, such as our athletic mergers, programs like BOCES. How can we all work together as we're all kind of moving in the same direction with our enrollment? The last couple pieces too is how does declining enrollment impact building level schedules? That's something we've talked about as well as we continue to have shared staff. Do those schedules align to allow for that? So those are things that we're talking about at the administrative level. And then the last piece is something that I've really been paying close attention to and having those discussions at the town and village level about really the need for affordable housing in our community. This is a need. It's something I hear about. It's something I hear about from our community that we just don't have a lot of options here. Now we're starting to see some shifts there with some of the potential shifts for some of the affordable housing options coming in the future. But that's something that I am talking about and something that they're very, very aware of. I have a good rapport with our village planner, and certainly it's on the forefront of his mind when projects come to his table. And I just want to make sure, again, as we look at our mission statement on the bottom there, that that's really our ultimate goal is even faced with declining enrollment, we're going to continue to do our very best to ensure that our students personalize those opportunities for our students to be lifelong learners, leaders, and global citizens. And that's really the ultimate goal of our school district. So at this point, I just wanted to share, again, this, if I think about this presentation, it's presenting data that's our enrollment data, but also things that I've learned and ways that we're going to continue to look at addressing our decline in enrollment. Any questions?
Thanks, John. This is a fantastic presentation. Very digestible. I'm wondering if you have or maybe will identify schools that are high-performing schools that are where we think we're going to be in 5-10 years to examine their model and structure.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one thing that we do look at when we look at data is those comparable schools, because we want to compare apples to apples. So absolutely, I think there are exemplar schools. The one at the top of my list would likely be like school demographically, financially, and regionally, in that it's also a very much a tourist hub, and it has very different degrees of people in their community, similar to Lake George. So to answer your question, yes, and certainly that's something we're going to be exploring as we continue to move on here.
Go ahead.
John, I just wanted to say, thank you for reminding us. You know, I think it's something that's always on in the back of our minds, but you know, as the year goes on and things are you know, everybody's having a positive year and there's good feelings, it's awfully easy to not stick our heads in the sand, but maybe not consciously. So I think with you coming in with a new set of eyes and reminding us of that, and that's really important for us to kind of reinvigorate ourselves with thinking about these challenges. So thank you.
I appreciate the focus on the opportunities with this data that is before us. What are our opportunities for the focus on the mission, vision, and values? So I appreciate that positive lens.
Great, thank you. I have one other short presentation here as part of my report this month. So as I've shared before last month, and I've shared with the Board of Education, I've also shared with the community in November, so I can remember correctly, November, we were issued a regulation pursuant to New York State Education Commissioner's regulations in regards to use of Native American imagery in school districts. So I want to provide an opportunity here to present to the board on what we've learned up to this point, starting with the regulation, really to where we're at right now. So we'll just dive in here. So as I mentioned, this first slide here has to do with sort of the history of New York State Education Department in regards to their feelings and some of the memos that they've put out in regards to use of Native American imagery in school districts. So it started back in 2001. There was a memo issued by Commissioner Mills that really asked boards of education to end the use of Native American mascots. Across the region, at that time, there was well over 70 school districts in New York State, likely more, that use Native American imagery. And many districts began to comply with that memo, including Lake George. And Lake George has really, over the last 10 years or so, really started to address this even with the Board of Education's resolution last year with the heritage image. So many districts began to comply, as mentioned. November 17th, just recently, the State Education Department issued a directive that districts must commit to replacing its Native American team names, logos, and/or imagery by the end of the 22-23 school year through a board-approved resolution. And then on December 1st, the actual regulation was issued. So we received the memo. It didn't have a whole lot of guidance in it. And then the regulation was issued. And that regulation was presented to the Board of Regents, the New York State Board of Regents, on December 12th for review. The regulation states that boards of education must commit via resolution to eliminating the use of all indigenous names, logos, and mascots by the end of the 22-23 school year. The resolution shall identify a plan to eliminate all use of the prohibited name, logo, or mascot with a reasonable time, which shall be no later than the end of the 2024-25 school year. So really what that means is that Currently, the Board of Education's responsibility is to approve a resolution committing to a plan, and that plan also ultimately has to be finished by the 24-25 school year. In addition to that, part of the regulation speaks to the fact failure to comply with the regulation, the district could be subject to loss of state aid and or removal of school officials. So the next steps for the state education department, so currently what's going on is that regulation is out for public review and comment for 60 days. So anytime there's a regulation passed by the New York State Education Department, it goes out for public comment and review. That's currently happening right now. In addition to that, starting in January, they're putting together a state advisory committee that's convening, that's going to include a variety of stakeholders, to include members of indigenous tribes and others. And their task, with kind of a specific task, is really to look at and provide guidance to school districts specifically on school nicknames, such as Warriors and other ones as well. The Board of Regents will review comments leading up to their April meeting. So they have monthly meetings as well, just like all boards of education. So they're going to be reviewing those comments up to the April meeting. There's possible there'll be minor adjustments to the regulation. That remains to be seen, but there's possible that there could be some minor adjustments. They're likely to adopt that at the April Board of Regents meeting, and then the regulation becomes permanent rule on May 3rd, if everything goes accordingly. I don't have any reason to believe it won't, but it's possible. So that's the state's next steps. So just here's what we're looking at as next steps as a district. So right now we're developing a thorough examination and understanding of our Lake George school history. That's really important. We have a long history going well back into the early 1900s. So that's something that we're doing right now. We're really investigating it. We're going into the records room. We're looking at past yearbooks. We're really kind of delving into that right now as an administrative team. We're presentations to staff at both buildings to make sure everyone is up to speed on this. And then we're also going to be starting student discussions. We want to make sure our students understand this regulation. So we'll be meeting with student council, varsity club, our captains, and really presenting to them for some feedback and looking at kind of what might lie ahead. Of course, we'll continue to communicate with the community as we learn more about our specific obligations, and obviously to continue to provide updates to the Board of Education leading to that required resolution by June 30th, 2023. So again, this was just a brief presentation to share a little bit about not only what the state's timeline is, but also what we're doing as a district here. And certainly I will continue to keep the board updated and our community, but that's really where we stand at this point here. Any questions?
Thank you very much, John.
Thank you so much.
The next up, we have a few committee reports, and the first one is the Curriculum Committee report with the chairperson, Rosemarie Earl.
Okay, the Curriculum Committee met on December 13th. We had two excellent presentations, one from the Physical Education and Health Department and the other from our Business Department. I have included their presentations on your agenda and also some notes that I took during the meeting. We are really very fortunate to have the opportunities that we offer our students, especially when you're talking about physical education, when students can choose which adventure unit or which unit they would like to participate in physical education. And you'll see that on my notes. And also in our business department, the opportunities that we offer our students are incredible, and it's so impressive. So if you have any questions about any of that, just let me know. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemarie. Our second committee report is our policy committee with the chairperson, Mary Ann McKenzie.
Okay. So we have a lot of policies moving forward this evening, 6 of them moving to second read. We discussed each of those last month. We have 8 moving to first read and 1 being retired. I'm going to go through each of the policies moving to first read. We had our policy meeting last night, and the minutes from that meeting are included here. And each of these policies are have been touched on. So I'll just go through that to make sure try to make sure there's clarity on these. So one policy moving forward to first read is 7150, remote instruction. This came to the committee by Erie One BOCES update. And it reflects, the update reflects a change in regulations, specifically starting in the 2023-24 school year. All districts must have an emergency remote instruction plan within the district-wide school safety plan. And in addition, the hours used for remote instruction can be counted toward the annual requirements for purposes of state aid. And that's what the update in that policy reflects. The next policy is 7530, child abuse and maltreatment. Also an Erie One BOCES update, which, and the revision reflects the change in labor law, section 740. And this was really just a language adjustment where the labor law language must have changed, and they've changed the term retaliative personnel action to retaliative action. And they felt the definition for that was deemed unnecessary to the policy, so they did not include that. The next policy, 7522, concussion management, also an Erie One BOCES update, reflective of new guidelines from New York State Education Department. And basically, this update serves to clarify and emphasize that a district's medical director has final authority to clear students for participation or return to extra class athletic activities. And, you know, the essence of that is not changed. I think they just wanted to emphasize that that is the case with the district medical director having final authority, excuse me. The next policy is 6215, probation and tenure, also an Erie One BOCES update. And the update reflects amendments to the law, which exempts districts from having to complete annual professional performance reviews, the APPR, for 2020 through 21 and the 2021-22 school years. And that exemption can apparently impact probation and tenure for years to come. And for that reason, they updated the policy language to indicate that different probation and tenure rules may apply in certain circumstances. The next policy is 6570, paid consultant leave. This was not an Erie One BOCES update. This is an update per our Lake George manual review. This policy was recently looked to for guidance and was found to not have had any updates for the last 10 years. And it was recognized that there were some procedural components within it that lacked clarity and practical flexibility. And so we felt it was important to take a look at it in committee. And this was looked at the district level and readied for discussion in policy committee. And the language has been updated to promote really a more functional approach to paid consultant leave within the requirements. Next one is 8110, curriculum development, resources, and evaluation. This came to policy by Erie One BOCES update. And the policy was revised to emphasize that curriculum must align with state learning standards and include specific topics required by law, regulation, or guidance. Definitions were added, and there was improved definition of board and district staff roles and which resources can be used in these processes. This policy was looked at and addressed at the district level and readied for committee review. And the ultimate result it makes use of the NYSBA, New York State School Board Association sample policy, the Erie One BOCES update, and our own Lake George pre-existing policy to customize the language for Lake George. And I think it reads really, really nicely. The next policy is 8320. Textbooks, library materials, and other instructional materials. This came to the policy committee by Erie One BOCES update. and it includes an overview of instructional materials, objectives and selection of materials, and procedures for reevaluation of materials. Erie-Wambosse's had additionally recommended a separate policy for the content related to reevaluation of materials. But historically, that's our Lake George policy has housed that in the same policy with as the rest of the information on instructional materials, and felt that that works well for our school district. So we opted to maintain that content all in the one policy, 8320. Next policy is 7350, corporal punishment / emergency interventions. This came to the policy committee by Erie-Wambosse's update and reflects amendments to Ed Law Section 4402, requiring same-day notification to a parent or person in parental relation of a student with a disability when a physical or mechanical restraint is applied to the student. Also, if that notification attempts are unsuccessful, those attempts to notify must be documented. The next policy is, those are all the policies moving forward to first read. In addition, we discussed last night in our policy committee meeting, policy 3281, which is student and staff community memorials. This is a new policy that came before the committee by superintendent referral and has been worked on at the district level and brought to policy committee for discussion. Through discussion, we recognize that there's just a bit further clarification that needs to occur. And so we're going to continue to work on that, and I can expect to see that in the near future, I think. And this evening we'll be retiring policy 4230, which is district committees. And the rationale for that, if you recall from last month, is that our new policy 4231, participation in school-based planning and shared decision-making, is moving to second read this evening. And that policy really absorbs the content of district committees. And so it will take the place of that one. Erie-Wambosse's also sent us a policy 7618 called use of timeout rooms. We consulted with our district professionals and recognized that we don't have this policy in the manual, and the committee consensus is to recommend not adopting this policy because the content is irrelevant to the Lake George School District. The district does not use timeout rooms. And lastly, in our Lake George manual review, we're currently working on a section in the policy manual called administration. And there is a group of documents in that section that start with duties and responsibilities of, and there's a list of different ones, different positions in the district. And as we started to take a look at that, we recognized that these items are more representative of job descriptions than policies. And last night we had the opportunity in committee to sort of dig up a little, understand the history of this a little bit more. And what we learned is that policy before it was all online existed in a hard copy manual along with many other types of documents, including some job descriptions. When the policy manual went online, some of those documents went online as well. And so that explains why some of these documents that might not seem to belong in the policy manual are there. And then Superintendent Luthringer suggested a recommendation to start creating an online job description manual. And that's something that we can be looking forward to later toward the end of the school year. And that once that is established, then we can properly update and relocate these items to that location. So that was useful discussion. That's my report. Does anyone have any questions?
I just want to say how continually impressed I am with the depth of understanding, but also a particular shout out for retiring a policy. It seems like the manual is very big and sometimes we add to it. And as somebody who in this new year, set my resolution and I've deleted a whole bunch of all my extra emails, it's a very freeing feeling. And so to look at that the retirement and then the other section helps have the clarity. So thank you for that work.
Thank you, Marianne. So next item on our agenda is our first of 2 public comment periods, and this period is agenda-related items. And we don't have anyone signed up on the first period comment sheet. There'll be a second comment period toward the end of the meeting and we do have someone signed up for that. So we will move into the school business. And the first item in school business is the school business consent agenda.
Thank you, Katie. As recommended by the superintendent, be resolved that the Board of Education of the Lake George Central School District hereby approves the school business consent agenda items A through K. To summarize, item A is a motion to approve the December 13th, 2022 regular minutes. Item B is a motion to approve the January 2023 CSE Committee on Special Education recommendations. Item C is a motion referring to the policy procedures of the Board of Education of the Lake George Central School District in regards to the policy that was the policies going forward. Item D is a motion to rescind policy 4230 district committees as it is obsolete or has been incorporated into other policies. Item E is a motion to increase the threshold for equipment purchases to $5,000 effective July 1st. Item F is a motion pertaining to surplus property that has of no value to the school district and or of obsolete or damaged beyond repair. Item G is a motion to approve the request from the VEX Robotics team to attend the VEX Robotics New York State Championships being held in Syracuse on March 10th through 11th. These dates are approximate and attendance is dependent on students' qualification. Item H is a motion to approve the Student Future Business Leaders of America request to attend the FBLA State Leadership Conference competition in Rochester, New York on April 19th through April 21st, and the National FBLA Conference in Atlanta, Georgia on June 26th through July 1st. Again, these dates are approximate and the attendance is dependent on qualification at prior events. Item I is a motion to approve the Model OAS field trip request to Washington, D.C. from March 19th through March 22nd, 2023. The dates are approximate and subject to change. Item J is a motion to accept the proposal for architectural services from Tetra Tech Architects and Engineers dated January 4th, 2023 in connection with professional architectural and engineering services for a new transportation facility at a cost of $755,000. Again, this was part of the voter authorization for our capital project. Item K is a motion to, in accordance with general municipal law, we had a 2012 Dodge Caravan that went to auction. So that's the approval of the highest bidder amount in $4,400.
Do we have a motion?
Second.
Do we have any questions? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the faculty and staff recognition, and the first item is faculty staff consent agenda.
As recommended by the superintendent, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Lake George Central School District hereby approves the faculty staff consent items A through I. Item A is a motion to approve the unpaid leave request for Audrey Van Vleck. Item B is a motion to amend the leave of absence request for Katie Gibbons, a teaching assistant. Item C is a motion to amend the appointment of Katie Gibbons to the position of long-term substitute elementary AIS teacher. So as mentioned, she's taken a leave from one position, but she's already in another position or going to another position. Item D is a motion to appoint Ryan Smith to the probationary position of cleaner. Motion to appoint, items E is a motion to appoint David Jones to the probationary position of cleaner at nights in the non-competitive section of the Civil Service Department. Item F is a motion to approve the amended 2022-23 extracurricular and co-curricular list. Item G is a motion to approve the amended 2022-2023 substitute list of employees not hired through BOCES. Item H is a motion to approve the memorandum agreement between the Lake George Central School District and the Southern Adirondack Substitute Teachers Alliance dated January 10th, 2023. And item I is a motion to approve the amended 2022-2023 coaches list.
Do we have a motion?
So moved?
Second.
Any questions? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Pardon? Do we have anyone here that was in this list?
Oh, I don't think so.
Agenda? Okay. And, pardon? Okay. And then the next item is a tenure recommendation.
Before recommending this action, I just want to comment on tenure for a second here in Lake George Central School District. And tenure is a extremely rigorous process in Lake George. Teachers are go through currently with educational law a 4-year process for tenure. There's multiple observations by various administrators, to include myself, across all 4 years. So our teachers really go through a rigorous process, and we support them along the way. As we've talked about, we have an induction program that has been established. We also have a mentoring program as well. So our teachers are not only gone through a rigorous process, and in that process, feedback is provided and all sorts of things can be worked on. But also they're supported along the way as well. So I'm excited and proud to recommend Cassie Hensler, our special education teacher and the special education tenure effective February 1st, 2023. As mentioned, Cassie has been a special education teacher since February 1st, 2019. She's done an outstanding job. It's without reservation that I recommend her to tenure in the tenure area of special education effective February 1st.
Motion? Any discussion and comment? Thank you for that explanation, John. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries, and congratulations.
Cassie's here.
Thank you for your work, and thank you for being here tonight with us. The next item on our agenda is Board of Education comments discussion. Anybody have any?
I've got two.
Okay, go for it.
First is I just wanted to check in with the board. I'm and thank John and Katie and everybody who has responded to comments and questions directed to the board, and just making sure that everybody knows where to find them when they go back into the minutes. So if there are more communications that come through for the board, so that we know what the answers are to questions and how we are communicating. If there are questions tonight or emails that come in, that will appear on next month's minutes in our executive content. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, that's how I have it. Good. I want to make sure everybody knew. The second one is I just want to throw it out here right now because I don't think we've talked about it at the public table. There's been some side conversations about the idea of having a student sit at the board table and participate. We do such a great job in this district with student voice and student participation to invite a student. I actually don't know what that process is and what the parameters are, but I would be very curious for us to inquire just a little bit more and explore that.
I'd be curious what other districts around us are doing and those that are including students on the board, how that's worked, what their process has been. It'd be maybe a nice way to explore that idea a little more.
Age limit, like to run for the board? Is there a low minimum age requirement or something that would prevent them from running?
Well, I think.
You don't want to make them run? They're just like.
Yeah, I think,
an appointment.
yeah, I don't really know, I haven't really explored how it would work. But I think, Trish, you're talking about a volunteer, well, we're all volunteers, but a student, probably a junior or senior
Right. And I mean, it would be interesting to see what different models are out there and what works best for Lake George. But to pursue that, I think is in alignment with our student empowerment. Has anybody at this board table had any familiarity? Sarah, do you know, have we ever had any students at the table?
So we have not in my tenure here, but in order to be a board member and run for the board, you have to be 18 years of age. To be a student participant, you're a non-voting board member, and it is a volunteer. So there is notes in our policy regarding student memberships on the board. So I would just look at that first.
Okay.
Thanks for reminding us because it comes up and it just kind of, we all appear, seem to be interested, but we should really look in and see what the models are. I think that's.
It'd be interesting to
good
have a
to-
discussion on that and also to look at our students and how they participate currently in our shared decision-making plan. They sit on many committees. So I don't know. I mean, it'd be great to have a discussion about it. I don't know if it's necessary to have them sit on the board, come at 7:00 at night and spend 3 grueling hours sometimes, sitting here discussing things, but it'd be great to have a discussion about it. But I think I wanted to comment in board comments that so impressive that our elementary school provides so many leadership opportunities for our kids. It just shows when they get to the high school that they can participate in a lot of things and confidently. And the other thing, I wanted to thank Fran for bringing up the phone-a-thon. I do sit on the Lake George Scholarship Association committee, so anyone has any questions about that, I am a participant, so just to let you know.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Next up is our second public comment period. And we have one person who has signed up, but as a reminder, we have this sign up sheet so that we have a person's contact information so we can make sure that we get back get back to the person and make sure that their questions or concerns are addressed. If you did not have an opportunity to sign up, you may still come forward for public comment. You're not limited by not having signed up on the comment sheet. And first, I'll just read our the thing that I read every month about public comment before we start that. The Lake George Central School District Board of Education welcomes district residents and parents and other interested persons to meetings. The community involvement is very important to our board, and it is encouraged so the board can better understand and represent the views of our constituents. Please be aware that by law, individual student information or particular personnel issues cannot be discussed at public sessions of the board. Please tell us your name when you come up to the microphone. Statements are limited to 3 minutes. The board and district staff take public comment very seriously, and careful notes of questions and concerns will be taken so that they can be addressed as soon as possible. Thank you in advance for helping maintain a safe and respectful decorum for our meeting. The first only name that's on the list this evening is Tabor Dunn. Welcome, Tabor.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year to you.
My name's Tabor Dunn, and I'd like to speak on behalf to you tonight, on behalf of my wife, Stacy. Let me get my glasses. It's a little dark in here.
Okay. We can relate to that situation, as you've seen me whip my glasses on and off about 50 times tonight.
Cheaters, right? I'd like to speak to you tonight on behalf of my wife, Stacy Dunn, about the reading instruction. Thank you all for taking on the responsibility to improve student achievement and provide fiscal accountability for our school and taxpayers. This is not another battle in the reading wars. It is now widely acknowledged in the scientific and educational communities that the programs and practices that have been used in many schools for decades to teach reading contradict the research on how kids learn to read. Lake George Elementary uses two such programs, Units of Study and Fontes and Pinnell. Both programs were reviewed by Ed Reports and received the lowest ranking for K-2 curricula in English language arts. The state of Massachusetts is offering grants to equip schools and districts with high-quality core instructional materials. Schools using Fontes and Pinnell or Units of Study will be given priority because the state had deemed these programs to be low quality. Evidence confirms that 95% of all children can learn to read with explicit, systematic, structured literacy to grade level and above. Reading on grade level by grade 3 is a well-established predictor of success in school and in life. The NAACP considers reading a social justice issue. In 2021 and 22, 48% of our third graders were proficient in reading on the state test, and 38% of economically disadvantaged students were proficient. Only 9% of our students with disabilities were proficient. In 2018, the district purchased an evidence-aligned phonics program called Foundations for K-2, but has yet to implement it in the first and second grades. There's discussion that it may not be implemented at all. Instead, our first graders are being taught phonics with failed Units of Study program. This decision was made prior to our new superintendent's arrival, but with full knowledge that the program fails to provide the systematic, explicit instruction students need. What's going on? I've been advocating for evidence-based reading instruction in Lake George schools for 20 years, ever since our own child's reading went off a cliff after starting the school's reading program. Teachers reject the research, remaining loyal to a flawed theory of how kids learn to read. Administrators support the teachers. Our new superintendent acknowledged that changes are needed and has a plan to address the issue with a book study. But changes won't begin until next school year. Where does that leave our K-2 children now? Are there things that can be done today to bring our literacy instruction more in line with best practices? By putting the kids first would mean asking teachers to do what they don't believe in, and in my view, that is no excuse. I implore you to exercise fiscal responsibility to taxpayers by discontinuing funding for unproven and disproven teaching methodologies, including but not limited to Units of Study and Fontes and Pinnell. Research shows that these programs negatively affect our children. Thank you for your time. And I think Sarah has a link that Stacy sent her to that backs up everything she just said.
Thank you very much,
And
Taylor.
thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments this evening? Okay, we are,
Yeah, I just want to comment for just
You
one
do,
second
okay.
here. I just thinking a little bit more about the comment regarding our reading program. And I want to just acknowledge to the board that, as I've mentioned tonight in my presentation, that we're always trying to improve and grow. That's the bottom line, is we're always trying to improve and grow and evaluate our curriculum and our programs. And as I've spoken with Mr. Conway, and one of the things that I've prided myself on as starting here is learning about our programs, our curriculum, building relationships, and then formulating plans. And that is something that we are doing and we are addressing as was indicated. Of course, we always want to do what's in the best interest of our students and ensure that our practices are sound and of best practices. So in that regard, we do pride ourselves on really addressing what would be the 5 pillars of reading instruction. When you think about it, phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. That is our ultimate goal every single day. And we want our students to be reading on grade level, but not only every year, but certainly by the time they get to 3rd grade, as mentioned, that is a strong predictor of success later in life. And according to our data that we've really looked at, our 4th graders that have entered 4th grade right now, so coming out of 3rd grade, approximately 75% of our students are reading on grade level, which is something to be proud of and excited about. Does that mean we don't have work to do? Absolutely, because we strive for 100%. So I do want to acknowledge the fact that, of course, we're always trying to improve, and we have plans to really start looking at ways that we can improve our phonics program, and ways that we can improve not only our reading program, but our math program, our science program, and our social studies program. I mean, that's something that we're always going to try to do. And we have plans that are beginning as we speak. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, John. The next item on our agenda is adjournment. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn?
All in favor?
I
Forgot to say any discussion, any questions? Any opposed? Motion carries.